What's going on, everyone? I think we're going to have 4 videos for you today. So I'm sure you won't be notified for them all. Make sure you check back the channel at 11, 2, 5, and 8 Central today. First story of the day. I don't know if you knew this, but they were developing a Game of Thrones prequel. In fact, they had spent $30 million on the pilot, and it got canceled for being too woke. Well, that's at least according to sources at The Sun. The Woke Walkers Game of Thrones prequel starring Naomi Watts axed as HBO decides $30 million pilot is, quote, too woke. This is coming from the same network airing The Watchmen. The Game of Thrones prequel starring Naomi Watts was axed after HBO decided the $30 million pilot was too woke. It was to feature the first White Walker as black, but also put lesbian characters at the heart of the plot and make one of Ned Stark's ancestors mixed race. Why is any of this important? Nobody knows. The series, in which the main theme was to be colonialism, was being run by writer and producer Jane Goldman, married to TV producer-presenter Jonathan Ross, also irrelevant information. But after 3 years of work, the show, which had the working title Blood Moon, was suddenly shelved for good this week. HBO announced that a different prequel, called The House of the Dragon, said to be more similar to the original series. So they didn't axe the idea of a Game of Thrones prequel. They just axed the woke one. They looked at $30 million in the hole and just walked away from it. The 10-partner will be based on the 10-parter, will be based on George R.R. Martin's first book, Fire and Blood. A source said HBO were, quote, terrified the first prequel would scare hardcore fans. It was very different from the original series, but was very brave and bold. Plainly, it was too ambitious for bosses who thought it might alienate viewers. The talk is that the new script was very average, but deemed a safe option. The prequel was very woke and subversive. They've decided to go for a script by a bloke and full of dragons. They've missed an open goal to do something different. Spending more than $30 million in 3 years have been a monumental waste of time and money. There's a lot of angry people. They all got paid? I don't understand. I mean, pink hair? Shocking. The series is being run by Jonathan Ross's wife, writer-producer Jane Goldman, with the danger-colored hair. Not everybody's happy, of course. HBO finally issues a statement on the canceled Game of Thrones prequel, and Game of Thrones prequel star gives a thumbs down to HBO cancellation. Get woke, go broke. Ha ha ha! Things are turning, my friends. In what was one of the most surprising news items from this week, HBO announced that it would be passing on the previously announced Game of Thrones prequel series. The move made more sense when the network announced it would be moving forward on another prequel series set within the show's original universe. Still, many are wondering exactly what led to the scrapping of the first prequel, which already had a cast and plot. We don't have the exact answers just yet, though we do have star Naomi Ackie's thoughts about it. Did I say Naomi Watts before? Oh, it is Naomi Watts. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, the rise of the Skywalker actress was recently at the BIFA nominations and blew a raspberry while giving a thumbs down while discussing her feelings on the cancellation. Can you put that in the article? It's an industry in which things can happen. Things get put down. I'm just really excited about what is out there for me now. That was a great project. It didn't work out. I'm ready to look for more stuff. I'm taking it in stride. This industry will throw you left, right, and center. I don't think they throw you right. You've got to take it all in stride. Naomi Ackie added, to Metro that nothing was confirmed at the time, though this quote was given before HBO released an official statement that it was not going to bring the prequel project to series. The latest statement seems to be the death knell for a project Prequel, which probably won't get large chunks of its pilot reshot the way the original Game of Thrones did. Naomi seemed positive about her experience with the project. It's understandable why she would be bummed out about the Game of Thrones prequel falling through as of in late 2019 and beyond was set to be a big year for her. Being part of Game of Thrones and Star Wars was something only a select few actors have accomplished. Naomi don't care about her. HBO's issued a final statement. Their official statement says, after careful consideration, we have decided not to move forward with the series with the untitled Game of Thrones prequel. We thank Jane Goldman, S.J. Clarkson, and the talented cast and crew for all the hard work they did. What's most surprising is that HBO also had pilot issues with Game of Thrones, but they still moved forward with the series from David Beinhoff and D.B. Weiss, who recently departed the next Star Wars trilogy, which we'll talk about later today. The untitled prequel series would have chronicled the transition from the golden age of heroes into its darkest hour. Despite the intriguing plot, it seems that HBO was far more interested in another series. A few short hours after the cancellation, it was confirmed that the Game of Thrones prequel was in the works, this one aptly titled House of the Dragon. The series was already given a 10-episode order, and the plot, based on George R.R. Martin's first book, Fire and Blood, details the story of House Targaryen. House of the Dragon is set 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones. Naturally, the series will probably include a lot of dragons. George R.R. Martin recently promised fans that he would finish The Winds of Winter, the 6th installment of his Song of Fire and Ice, before penning any episodes for House of the Dragons, so keep an eye out for that. The author recently expressed excitement for the Targaryen-centric prequel. In a recent blog post, he admitted to being disappointed that the Game of Thrones prequel was axed. It goes without saying that I was saddened to hear the show would not be going to series. Jane Goldman is a terrific screenwriter, and I enjoyed brainstorming with her. There's currently no premiere date scheduled for House of the Dragon, nor has production on the prequel been announced. Stay tuned to Cinema Blend for more information. Now, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be really interesting to see, because if you look at Game of Thrones over the past 2 or 3 years, it started to really alienate a lot of fans. And I don't think the problem with the series was necessarily wokeness. The show seemed to do a pretty good job just kind of spreading around power. There were definitely powerful women in the show. There were definitely powerful men in the show. But it all felt organic. That's the thing. And when you look at what happens to a lot of these shows, and I'll talk about the fall of Terminator later today too, I think. When you look at how the shows get marketed, that's such a big part of why they lose their audience. Now, certainly the last season of Game of Thrones split audiences almost down the middle. So they're probably looking at trying to bring back some of those people into the fold. And HBO doesn't have a lot to offer right now outside of The Wokeman, which is an average show, I guess 3 episodes in. Not much to write home about. But the idea that they would go out of their way to overly woke Game of Thrones when it doesn't feel organic is exactly the wrong way to go about it. I don't understand why showrunners don't try to rein in the marketing. They ask for this type of stuff by saying, like, why is that even relevant, these people's orientation, before the show's even ever been out? It doesn't count as a reason to watch the show or not watch the show. And I guess it does appeal to a very, very, very small amount of people on Twitter who do retweets and things like that, but they don't actually pay for HBO. They can't afford it. They don't go to the movies. They can't afford it. Or they just, they have to have an opinion on everything. Ironically, yes, I understand. But at least I go to the movies. At least I pay for HBO to watch the shows, to give you a report back on them. I think that Game of Thrones, a lot of people outgrew it, much in the same way that The Walking Dead kind of got stale. I was into The Walking Dead. It was water cooler TV for maybe the first 3 or 4 seasons for me. And then I just kind of stopped watching it. it wasn't even anything that they necessarily did. I think the show was still interesting. You just kind of grow out of it a little bit. And I think Game of Thrones experienced a little of that near the end. And if you're going to try to win fans back, there's going to just be a large group of people who are just over Game of Thrones. And that's kind of where I'm at. Even though the last season was divisive, I just was apathetic about it. I didn't care anymore. I was over. I didn't want to watch 10 years of Game of Thrones. I don't want to watch 10 years of The Walking Dead. Turn the channel, turn the page. You want to find something else. And a Game of Thrones prequel is low-hanging fruit for HBO, but it's not going to bring people back, I don't think, in large numbers. And I could be wrong. I probably will be wrong because they're probably going to market it like crazy. But when you have media writing, articles about how woke it is and all this crap, well, you're not going to get any audience. You're only going to cause division. And that's what you see in modern day media. You see it with the Star Wars media. You see it with, we saw this recently with Terminator Dark Fate. We're going to see this with, the woke walkers. Doesn't work. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.